disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, good evening, everyone, and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here on a beautiful Friday fall evening in Utah. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in, from all of my listeners all over the world and reaching out to me. The show is growing, and it makes me so happy because I am doing this from the bottom of my heart for all of you. I feel it is so important to get good information out there, and I feel that lots of times we aren't given good information, especially in mainstream ufology, and it is my hope that I can find credible researchers and people to share things with you, and you will begin to see the truth and the gravity of the situation we have at hand. I am on Facebook, so you can like UFO Classified. Get in there, send me a message. If you've had any type of orange orb sighting, I would love to hear about it. I've been, again, talking to people from all over the world about their sightings and doing my own research project and talking to people from researchers from all over the world and trying to put some things together so we can move research forward in that regard. I will be speaking at the New Mexico UFO Conference coming up on October 22nd. That should be fun. Make sure you get a ticket. Dave Marler and Stanton Friedman, John Greenwald will also be there presenting, and the tickets are only $25. So it's a great event. Really impressive price. I like it a lot. And then I will be at the Art, Music, and UFOs Evolution of Human Consciousness with Paola Harris at the Starworks Symposium coming up November 11th through the 13th. So definitely get your tickets there. This should be really interesting. We've got people like Ron James, Barbara Lamb, Doug Taylor, James Fox, who I love his work, Mike Barra. So make sure you come see me at some of those events and come up and talk to me and tell me your story. I really, the most important thing for me to do this is the connection between all of you, because I believe that we have a mission. Each of us is responsible for learning about this and breaking down barriers, creating excitement and enthusiasm in a younger generation. And I believe that we all need to work together to accomplish that, because this is just far too important to not do that. My guest tonight is someone who I have worked with in MUFON, and we found each other because of my own personal orange orb sightings that I had over the Salt Lake Valley. Those sightings were so impactful to me that I wanted to know more, and I began to call everybody I could. I began to research, called Peter Davenport and many different people, and I found out through my own sightings and doing that research that these sightings, these orange orb sightings, were taking place not only here, but all over the world, and this was nothing new. But what were they? I'm still trying to figure that out, and I've found a core group of people that are really dedicated to that. Bob Spearing is one of those people, and I found him and Terry Ray with MUFON, and we started Project Orange, and Bob is still working on that. And I'm really happy to say that at the last MUFON symposium, he actually did a workshop for investigators to teach them how to investigate this. And I think that is so fantastic. This is such a big step. I'm just so proud of him. I can't even tell you. But he also has a wonderful website, which is World UFO Watch, where he posts articles, great information, great cases. He's a brilliant guy. He is a graduate of Fordham University in New York City with his BA in communications. He is on the MUFON STAR team. He's a field investigator, special assignments team. He's a MUFON state section director in New Jersey and the MUFON national director of India. How cool is that? We've got to talk about that. That is, oh my gosh. You're not busy at all, are you? And then you actually have a day job.
Yes. First of all, congratulations on your radio show. It's really good to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, National Director of India, I was involved with the International Case Assistance Group, helping out around the world. When MUFON put Hangar 1 out, the TV show, their popularity went up so much they had more cases than they had investigators around the world, and basically I helped fill in the gap with India. And I have a couple of investigators working for me now, but there was a point where it was just me trying to handle all the Indian cases.
Wow. What kind of cases are you getting over there?
India is a very interesting place. They get a lot of orb cases, first off, but they get a lot of hoax cases. There's a certain type of witness in India that send me a lot of CGI photographs of massive UFOs over cities that were taken from paintings from the TV show V.
Oh dear.
A couple of decades ago. You get flying humanoids, but the serious, seemingly legitimate reports seem to be orbs hovering over cities a lot and near military bases.
Isn't that interesting? So this is happening worldwide. And I was fortunate enough to have Dr. Haynes on my show last week from NARCAP. And, he stated in some of his early interviews that, yes, this phenomenon is the same thing all over the world.
Oh, yeah. And, one of the things that we're researching is that they show up at recurring sites around the world, like the Marfa lights, the Hessdalen lights, the Min lights of Australia. So with that in mind, it is possible to go to certain places around the world and actually try to set up equipment and investigate them.
Yes, that's true. And it is really interesting. I've been trying to, we both have, I know this, trying to figure out what the common connection is. What are the commonalities in some of these places? And it's just been very curious to me. And I keep going back to the fact that for me, I wonder what the mineral or rare earth content has to do with it, because we get lots of reports of these objects appearing over mines. Right.
I'll tell you, one of the interesting places where orbs have been sighted historically as far back as the Indians before colonists even showed up was Lake Erie on the Ohio side especially. And there are massive salt deposits. There are trillions of tons of salt underneath Detroit and underneath Cleveland. And these are areas where we get a lot of orb sightings. So there's been correlations between, I think it's uranium and copper out west by you, and there's been correlations with underground salt deposits and natural caves around Lake Erie. So yes, there is a component that seems to be related to some sort of mineral content. In northern New Jersey, there are old mines, and I forget what the mineral is, but it's one of the clusters of New Jersey's over these old.
Isn't that interesting? And it sounds like we might have lost our guest, so we'll let Tina try to hook back up with him. But I will just say that it is, both Bob and I have had many different conversations about this for a couple years now. Oh my gosh. And we we have noticed these common links. What they're frequently these objects, these luminous spheres are seen over, he was mentioning nuclear installations. Robert Hastings has done some great work with regard to that. And then you also have some of these, the mine connection. So I live in the Salt Lake Valley, and I look at the valley and see Kennecott Copper Mine, and there are frequent sightings there with the same type of objects. And then you look back at, Lake Erie, like he was saying. I know some people that are geologists. Oh, you're back. Okay, great. I was just saying that I know some geologists that work in Chile, and they've had, they're not involved in UFOs at all, but they're obviously out in these mines with specific mineral content, and there's a history of sightings there as well.
That's right. In 2014, I believe there was a series over Chilean mines.
Yes, and it's so perplexing to me, but they do seem to be in specific areas, whether these areas are portals or what have you. But I do find it interesting, like with Marfa and the Min Min lights and some of these places that people, the skeptics or whatever, they will often say, "Oh, they're car lights or they're
right.
this or that," and no, I don't think so.
No, well, I'll tell you, the earliest sighting of a Marfa, Texas light was 1883. And the earliest sighting of a Min Min light in Australia was 1838. And there were stories by the Aborigines before that. So I doubt very much they were cars.
Well, since you put it that way, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, you can't debunk that. But it's amazing to me how many people still try to write things off. And now we know our favorite excuse are that these are Chinese lanterns.
Right. One of the things that Project Orange is doing, and what I taught about at the class, was misidentifications and hoaxes and Chinese lanterns. Pretty much nobody believes that orbs are airplanes, in effect. There are cases where they may be drones, because drones now can come equipped with orange lights, but for the most part, people try to write them off as saying that they're Chinese lanterns. Chinese lanterns are, if you don't know, paper balloons with a little candle-type fuel cell at the bottom. There's definite differences between orbs and Chinese lanterns. One is that Chinese lanterns tend to be tricolored, whereas orbs tend to be one-colored. Chinese lanterns will burn brightest at the base where the fuel cell is. They'll burn white. They'll show up white in a photograph at the bottom, yellow in the middle, and orange or red on top. So if you have a fairly clear photograph, you can definitely tell if something's a Chinese lantern or not. The other thing is that we tested Chinese lantern fuel cells. There's two types of fuel cells. One is a paper cardboard type fuel cell, about 3 inches by 3 inches, and another one is a fiberglass fuel cell, 2 inches by 2 inches. They're both covered with a substance called palmitic acid, and we test burned several of these to see how long they would burn. The paper ones burn erratically and are out within 3 minutes. They're also a major fire hazard, which is why a lot of municipalities are trying to outlaw them in the United States and England. They put embers all over the place, but they burn no longer than 3 minutes and completely go out. The fiberglass ones we found burn up to 6 minutes. So what we try to look at is whether or not these lanterns are seen or filmed or witnessed by these witnesses for more than 6 minutes in duration. In cases where it's more than 6 minutes, in some cases it's a half an hour, and people film these things for half an hour, you can definitely rule out Chinese lanterns. Another aspect of lanterns that we study is wind direction. If you have a 0 mile per hour wind and you have an object going up in altitude, chances are it's a Chinese lantern because they will fly vertically with no wind. If you have no wind and something is flying horizontally, chances are it's not a lantern. Likewise, if you have an object flying into a wind, it is probably not a lantern because lanterns go with the wind. And finally, if you have an object flying in a wind that's more than 4 miles per hour, it is probably not a lantern because lanterns tend to collapse in on themselves at 4 miles per hour and fall to the ground.
Isn't that, and that's so interesting. I mean, how did you feel you were received with this information? Because that's incredible to me, and it's that just solidifies the fact that there is something really important going on here that is oftentimes overlooked. But did you feel that people were, now the light bulb was going on in their head?
I'll tell you, I was very well received at the field investigator training at the MUFON convention. I got a good 20 minutes of questions afterwards, and I must have gotten 20 business cards from people who wanted to know several of the investigative techniques that I taught them at the class.
That is, so, I'm so happy for you. That's just thrilling. You know, I think one of our frustrations, I know when you and I had talked, and Terry, was the fact that so many investigators were not taking this seriously. And when we looked at cases, I mean, gosh, all the way back in the MUFON database, you could see that so many investigators wrote these objects off, even though they were clearly moving against the wind and hovering for 15 minutes at a time and behaving in ways that Chinese lanterns could not do. There was just this sentiment of almost just, I mean, it was very dismissive. So I'm very impressed.
Well, Terry's book was groundbreaking in the fact that he was the first one who ever addressed these things in a book and considered them orbs in a separate phenomenon from like earthquake lights and just other nocturnal lights in the sky that could be misrepresentations. He was the first one that actually put it on paper and said, these things don't behave like lanterns. These things don't behave like drones. These things don't behave like helium balloons with flares attached to them, you know?
And that's great. I remember meeting Terry at a MUFON symposium, and he was there selling his book. And, you know, I went up to him and said, "Oh my gosh, you know, this is what I have witnessed, and this is my frustration." And I think that he definitely felt like we do at times, that it's just there's this real dismissive tone with that. And then you get some of these videos on YouTube and different things, and I know that there are lots of hoax videos and photographs out there, but you know what? There are some really great things that are being overlooked or debunked.
Right. You know, one of the things that bothers me most about some of the investigations that MUFON's done is the length of the investigation will be this. It was the 4th of July. It was a Chinese lantern, period. They don't even fill in the weather in half of the reports we've studied. 500 reports we've done so far. 250 reports had no weather info. Weather info is critical to whether or not it's a Chinese lantern or an orb. You know, so it's like the people have just written them off for so long when, you know, you can go back 3,500 years, long before there were Chinese lanterns, and people were seeing these anomalous objects in the sky. History is full of reports. I collect reports from these about these phenomena.
And that's true. And I don't know why we have this mindset, and I think it's probably more common in the United States than in other places, but it's almost this, I don't know if it's this, I'm moving into this with bias, and I'm going to be, you know, I think it's a very ego-driven kind of type of a way of investigating. It's like, I've got to be the biggest debunker. I'm going to prove that this is a man-made object, right, without conducting good research. And that really is a problem, especially when you want to go back through a database and analyze the data. How do you do that? Because you have to go through and reinvestigate all these cases.
Right. I have a video from a MUFON case from 3 years ago where they watched the object for 30 minutes and they filmed it for 8 minutes. And after 7 minutes, the object split into 2 portions and then into 3 portions. One of the critical behaviors of orbs is that they merge and separate. But a lot of the accounts were historical. A lot of newspapers from the 19th century described this behavior. But there's actually a great MUFON case where you actually see the orbs separating. I sent it to the largest flare company in the United States, and their vice president analyzed the video for me. And he told me that most flares only burn for 2 minutes. Even though it had the look and feel of like a welder's arc flare type object, maritime flares, military flares only burn in the sky for 2 minutes. This thing was seen in the sky for 30 minutes. I wish I knew the case number. I'll find it for you before the program's over for anybody that has access to the MUFON database. But you got to see this video. It's great.
Oh, that would be wonderful. And I think that, you bring up the flare thing, and we look at the Phoenix Lights, the big classic case. And so many people tried to dismiss a lot of that due to the military flares. And people are overlooking the data. They're overlooking the facts of the matter just to prove that there's nothing there.
Right. Battlefield flares burn for 2 minutes. That's why you see so many of them in one picture, because they're constantly going out and being replaced by new flares. It's the same thing with maritime flares. Now, road flares can burn up to 15 minutes, but there's ways that you can tell if somebody is hoaxing with a balloon with a flare attached to it. First of all, flares drip. So if you have a video where a bright object is dripping something from it, chances are it's a flare. Also, we found out that most of the orange orb cases, there's a good reason why they're called orange orbs. 45% of all orbs are orange. By far, that's the largest percentage of any of the other colors. Pink, which is what most road flares burn, the color that they burn, accounted for less than 2% of all orb sightings in the MUFON database. Third, flare smoke. People see smoke when they see these flares in the sky. And when they're filmed, you can see the remnants of smoke. And usually they reflect off the bottom of the balloon. They're so bright, so it doesn't show up as an orb. It shows up as a mushroom. They're all telltale signs that you can rule out something as a hoax or not.
And this is it sounds like you have done a lot of work since we talked last. And we need to make sure that we talk more often, because this is really, really good. This is good information. And I think that, you're one of those people that I always think about and think that you're just a diamond in the rough, because you have so much knowledge. You're so dedicated, and you need to be sharing this in a major, major way. And I'm glad that you're starting to do that. That makes me so happy.
Well, thank you, because you were my boss on Project Orange, and it's like if it wasn't for you, there wouldn't have been a Project Orange.
Well, no, it's been my pleasure. So it's exciting for me to see just everything and how things. I really believe things are starting to shift with regard to this, and I think that for me, when I found out that you were speaking at the field investigator training, I mean, I was just beyond excited, because this is in my opinion, some of the biggest group of skeptics with regard to this phenomena, and so for you to do that. Wow, it was so cool. But we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of your cases and what the characteristics are of these objects and all sorts of cool stuff. So I am Erica Lukes. You are listening to KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network. It is Ladies' Night, and we will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Where'd that shot come from?
Alpha 3 to Eagle 1. We've got company.
From Tay Publishing, codename Eagle Force, the saga begins.
I see them, Alpha 3. All units stay low and let them come.
From the eyes of a special ops officer, Joe Michael Riggy brings to life this amazing story of survival, the unknown and the unexpected.
Here they come. Hold your fire. Hold. Now.
Codename Eagle Force at TayPublishing.com.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
Should we tell him the news?
I think we should tell him.
It's all right.
It's all right. It's all right.
Thursday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. It gets hot, really hot.
You behave. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Come listen to the Core Sports Report hosted by Devin Dodson and Bob Lake as they break down the current scores, sports betting lines, and spreads. The Core Sports Report, whether it's pro or college sports, they have it covered.
Who are we talking about?
The Core Sports Report, live Thursday, 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The only guys I trust to give it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, baby. Yeah.
When it comes to sports.
When danger is imminent, will you be prepared? Now many mobile devices can bring you critical information from local sources you trust. With the unique sound and vibration, wireless emergency alerts keep you in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
If ever a breed was affectionate to a fault, it's the Golden Retriever. They're people dogs, pure and simple. And the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada needs your help. If you would like to volunteer, foster, adopt, or donate, go to the Golden Retriever Rescue of Southern Nevada's website at grrsn.org. That's grrsn.org. Or call 598-GOLD. That's 598-GOLD.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. I am here tonight talking about something that is incredibly important to me, and I believe as we look to the future of what we need to be investigating, this is it right here. We need to stop with the nuts and bolts because we're not seeing that anymore, and we need to really engage and look at the orange orb sightings that are taking place all over the world. And this is nothing new. I'm talking to my guest, Robert Spearing, tonight about that, and he has done great work, as we were talking about before on our last segment. And Robert has a great website you guys should all go to, World UFO Watch. He's got the latest cases with regard to the orange orb sightings and then historical cases. It's a great website, and I'm really happy to have you here, my old long lost friend.
Great to be back.
Absolutely. You know, the orb phenomena is something that, as we're talking about, is something that it's not new. I mean, we've got historical sightings that, right. I mean, oh my gosh. And then you've got these places where Min, Australia, you've got Brown Mountain, Yakima, Marfa, all of these places, and here in Utah, near Skinwalker Ranch, all of these places are seeing the same types of things, and they are the same in Hessdalen. So tell us a little bit more about what your thoughts are with regard to this.
The phenomenon has been with us for at least 3,500 years. The earliest report goes back to Thutmose III, Pharaoh of Egypt, in 1500 BC. And basically, in 1932, a fellow by the name of Alberto Tully, who was a curator at the Vatican Museum, purchased a piece of parchment, papyrus, from an antiquities dealer and had it translated. Unfortunately, when he died, it was lost. It was never photographed, but it was seen by several prominent Egyptologists of the day. And it basically told an amazing story that one day balls of fire came and arrived in the sky, and every day more and more came. And at one point, they went up higher in the sky, and the Egyptians didn't know what to make of it. But then the most bizarre thing happened, if that wasn't bizarre enough. Fish and rocks and other things started falling out of the sky. And we would see this behavior centuries later. So the working theory is that they were taking on water and that they were getting rid of the refuse, which would have included rocks and fish and other things because they didn't need it. Then you have the incident in 1561 over Nuremberg, where you have orbs and crosses and cylinders in the sky, and later on a black spear-shaped object crossing the sky in the afternoon, and they appeared to be doing battle in the sky, these blood-red orbs. Just before daybreak it occurred. In 1694, you had over Wales, orbs coming out of the water and setting fire to barns and haystacks in this village. In the 1800s, you had an enormous amount of orb activity in the Indian Ocean. In the 1940s, you had the Foo Fighters. In 1965, you had orbs being seen near the Clay Power Station near Niagara Falls on November 9th, 1965, minutes, if not seconds, before the blackout occurred that blacked out the entire northeast United States. As a matter of fact, since 1965, more than 50% of all UFO reports are balls of light of some nature.
Yes, they are.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's why, again, I don't understand why when people can look at the data, look at the database and see this, why that's not a big red flag that, oh, hey, we might need to take this seriously.
Right. I mean, and then as you mentioned before the break, there's characteristics and behaviors of orbs that just don't fit into the pattern of Chinese lanterns and helium balloons attached to flares, just to give one example, one of the things that I've been following very closely is that people who have seen orbs close up, one woman in New Jersey in particular was 10 feet away from an orb that was in her backyard. They see this bell-shaped membranous outline, semi-transparent outline around the orb itself. She described it as a 4-foot wide ball of churning orange light surrounded by a bell-shaped membrane. We had another case where the guy described it as a old-fashioned milk bottle-shaped membrane around the orb. We have a case from Louisiana where the guy actually drew a really excellent diagram of what he saw, and it's an orange ball surrounded by a bell-shaped membrane. Michael Lee Hill in Ohio, who has filmed many, many orbs, saw one close up and described it having a membrane around it in the shape of a top hat. What's interesting about all of these membrane cases is that the object that they're describing around the orb should be round all the way around if it's some sort of force field. But it's flat on the bottom. All of these drawings and all of these cases and all of these descriptions describe something that is absolutely flat on the bottom, which says that it's not a natural phenomenon. There's either some sort of energy field around the orb itself that's used for propulsion, which is why it's flat on the bottom because of the shape of the field and the direction of the object, or it's some sort of cloaked craft possibly around the object.
Wow, isn't that interesting? I mean, it is. The more I learn about this, the more questions I have, as always. But I wonder, some witnesses that I have talked with and cases I've looked at, I mean, they feel that these are living entities. Then I talk to other witnesses that say that they feel like they're almost some sort of like a drone, some sort of scout that has been sent here to do a task. What is your feeling on that?
I am so undecided about whether they're some sort of technological object, whether there's some sort of natural object, or whether there's some sort of combination of both, some sort of biological machine. In the I know you've made contact with researchers lately who believe that they may be some sort of living organism. But in the 1950s, there was a guy by the name of James Trevor Constable, and he wrote a book called "They Live in the Sky." And he used to go out into the desert and use ultraviolet infrared film and photograph these objects in the sky, which he said glowed because as they moved through the air, they picked up static electricity, and that's what made them glow. That was his theory, and he believed that they were actually living amoeba-like objects high in our atmosphere. He called it the atmospheric sea, and he believed that just the way we didn't know that gorillas really existed till 2 centuries ago, he believed that there's things in our upper atmosphere that are living and live up there that we just haven't discovered yet.
And I will say thank you for turning me on to him, because I'm sitting here looking at 2 of his books. One is They Live in the Sky, and then the other is Sky Creatures, Living UFOs. Mm-hmm. And no one ever really talks about his work anymore. And it was quite good.
He was ahead of his time. He sort of had a new age slant to it, and I think back in the 1950s that turned a lot of people off because we hadn't reached the age of Aquarius yet. So I think a lot of people just didn't know where he was coming from. I think that's what happened to him.
You know, and he's one of those things. I mean, I look at his work, and then you also, I don't know if you have a copy of Mysterious Fires and Lights. Oh, by Vincent Gaddis. Yes, I
do. That's great. The first half of that book is all about orbs in the 1960s.
And you must have been the person that told me about that. But I mean,
maybe I did. Yeah, maybe.
Oh my gosh! I mean, you know that, and these are all out of print books, and they're a
lost
little bit
book. Yes, wonderful book. That if you don't know where to find it on eBay or Amazon, it's just lost to history.
It is, and I can't believe how many of these books that are incredibly important are out of print. You know, I just spent $100 the other day getting Project Identification. Mm-hmm.
I just bought Project Identification. I just got it in the mail last week.
Great minds think alike. And I mean,
and it cost me a pretty penny too. That's a hard book to get.
Yeah, no, and I opened my book, and this has to do with what we're studying here. But I opened the book, and there was an inscription from Harley, and signed by Harley Rutledge. Dated really? July 3rd, 1981. So I was quite excited about that little purchase. But it's interesting because there are a few good researchers that have done work that has been overlooked. And like I was saying when we came back from the break, I really believe that now we're looking at things, and we shouldn't be looking at the nuts and bolts aspect of this anymore, because that's not what we're dealing with. And the database clearly, all of the data that we're getting clearly, drives that home.
Right. Whether or not you think that they may be technological or living organisms or a combination of both, what we can definitely agree on is that they're intelligent. All right. They have behaviors that definitely connote some sort of at least rudimentary intelligence. The object in the backyard where the woman was 10 feet away from it, when she screamed, when she saw it, the object recoiled and flew away through the trees, all right, as if to get away from her. So just on that alone, we know that the object could hear her or sense her vibrations and was able to react to it. So we know this just isn't an inert ball of light.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I go back to a case, and I talk a lot about this on my show because it was such an interesting case. And I've mentioned it to you before, but it was a fellow who was in the military, he was in California, and he went away from the base and was out putzing around, and then he was coming late at night back into the base, and he was in a wooded remote area, and he looked over to his left and saw a ball of light just going right through the trees. And he said it was like the trees were not even in the way. And then the object all of a sudden veered out and hit his car and literally picked the car up and pushed it off into a ditch. Wow. And he was so shaken by that. I mean, he was just like, oh my Lord. And he kept driving and thinking this thing is chasing him. He didn't know what had happened. I think he was confused, but he drove into the entrance of the base and got where he was safe and got out, and there was no damage to the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like they definitely interact at some level with people. There was a guy in New Jersey 2 New Year's Eves ago. We got 2 reports from the same mile marker on the same highway, a half an hour apart, where a dark silver ball with spikes was flying along the opposite way on the highway, struck the side of his car, and kept going. And an hour later, at the same mile marker, a double orb was seen. So we got the impression that maybe the orb, the silver ball with the spikes, because we've gotten several reports of silver spiked balls, that it was possibly malfunctioning or damaged or wounded, and that it was a rescue mission by the other orb, and that it attached itself to it as a form of rescue to get it out of there.
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is they orange orbs have been seen over the formation of crop circles. I know you're interested in crop circles.
Yes.
Let me see. What year was that? In July 10th, 2010, Warwickshire, England, Old Milverton. 3 orange lights were found moving near a formation, and on July 12th, the crop circle was formed on July 10th. On July 12th, 3 orange orbs were captured flying in formation over the crop circle. They were photographed. So there's definitely a correlation between crop circles, which, some may be man-made, some may not be, and orange orbs.
Yes, there is. And I find that so intriguing. And I have a question here in the chat room. One of my favorite people in the world, UFO author, wanted me to ask it. But what are the difference? How can we distinguish between, the lights in the sky and then the orbs that we frequently hear about in the paranormal sense of the word? Or do you think there's any distinguishing? Are they the same thing?
Well, my personal opinion is that I think a lot of paranormal orbs are dust objects in the foreground of a photograph, especially where they're taken at night with a flash camera, and you get these like multiple orbs in the sky. I tend to think that a lot of them are just dust particles that are illuminated. And when we were at field investigator training, Mark D'Antonio actually did an experiment where he took talcum powder and had everybody. He threw the talcum powder up in the air, and everybody flashed their camera at the same time and then looked at their pictures, and you clearly saw orbs in the photograph. So I think that paranormal orbs, if they do exist, tend to be a lot smaller than the orbs we're looking at. The orbs we're looking at tend to be, on average, about 4 feet wide. This is from personal people's descriptions, and this is from my analysis of numerous photographs. There's a method where you can actually, if you know the distance an object is from the photographer, you can actually work out the size of the object by the number of pixels in the photograph, the number of pixels the object occupies, and by timesing it by the 40-degree field division of the camera and then using some algebra. And what we found is that a lot of these objects tend to be about 4 feet wide. But we have reports of orbs being as big as 800 feet in diameter. So and the Hessdalen lights, they appear to grow and shrink. So I tend to think that paranormal orbs are smaller, if they do exist, than the orbs we're looking at. Also, our orbs don't appear in houses. It's strictly an exterior phenomenon, which also separates it from ball lightning, which I can go into later if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be great. And the more I collect witness testimony and talk to different people, I do have to wonder if what we're seeing in the sky isn't somehow related to the things that are seen inside people's homes. It's just fascinating to me because I've had several guests on the show who have seen things up in the sky or just barely above the ground, and these objects will come into their homes.
Well, there's a certain type of orb that people see. I don't really classify it as an orange orb, but prior to abductions in people's bedrooms, people frequently see flashes of blue light, or they sometimes see small white-colored orbs floating around in their bedroom before they incur sleep paralysis and possibly a small entity in the room. So I won't disregard that people see a smaller type of orb in their houses, but I don't think it's the larger orange kind.
That's interesting. And this is the problem, is that we just don't know.
Right. Nobody has ever captured an orb. All we can do is guesstimate in a lot of cases.
No, but I think it's important, though, that we're even, we're starting to, people have been trying to have this dialogue for a long time, but hopefully we can speed that along and create a cohesive community of people that are talking about this, people that have researched it. And, I go back to Greg Long and his wonderful book, Examining the Earthlight Theory, which is something I would recommend for all of you to get, because he has done a brilliant job, and he takes on Persinger and Durr and their work, which is incredible. But he's got all of these cases from the Yakima Indian Reservation, and these objects are either intelligently controlled or intelligent living entities, and the cases and the effects that they've had on people, and the fact that the Forest Service knew about this, all of these different things. It's there's so much here to look at, and unless we're all willing to, I hope that we can talk about this and create an environment where researchers feel like they're not being scrutinized in such a deplorable way.
Sure, I think everything is on the table when it comes to orbs.
I do too, and I hope that some of the researchers that have kind of gone off and are quiet, hopefully we can, like I said, just create a cohesive environment of productive research, so we can try to figure out what this is. And I would love to meet you sometime with a couple other researchers and do a field research study. Wouldn't that be fun?
I'd love to meet the guys from NARCAP. That'd be great.
We'll never say never. I'm telling you. I think we might have to. We're going to get ready to take a break, but I want to just say, everybody, especially UFO author, I just love having her in the chat room and being one of my friends. But thank you so much, all of you, for being here and spreading the word. Please make sure that you take the show after the link is up. Tina Marie is fantastic to always get the links up so you can take them, post them, share them. Please get the word out about the show and what we're trying to do. I have some really great guests coming up, and I want to tell you, this is a coup for me. Last week I interviewed Dr. Richard Haynes from NARCAP, and he does not do interviews. So for me to have done that, thanks to Ted Rowe, was a real big accomplishment for me. I was so excited, and he sent me the nicest email after and said, you do such a great job, and I love your enthusiasm, and I wish there were more people like you. When can I be on your show again? And so I just, when I read that, I was bouncing off the ceilings. And so needless to say, in 2 weeks, Dr. Haynes will be back, and we're going to talk about his really wonderful book, Observing UFOs. And if you are remotely interested in this and you want to become a researcher, or an investigator, this really is the book that you need to have, because it gives you so many good ideas and techniques, and then teaches you about visual fields and things that are important when you're really looking at this. And even if you don't want to go into the investigative aspect, just to be a better observer, because there's so much going on. So learn how to distinguish an airplane light from something really exceptional. It's so, so cool. So anyway, he will be on in 2 weeks, but next week, my guest is Richard Smith, who wrote a book called The Moor, the Mason, and the Alien, A Call to Action. And he is an experiencer who's had lots. This is a great book, lots of fascinating tales. So I'm excited. I am going to be later in the show tonight. We're going to talk about Foo Fighters and some of the documents that I have obtained with regard to that, and some of the work that Robert Spearing has done. Make sure you go to World UFO Watch. And then, have you done anything lately? I've just got to ask you, Bob, have you done anything for Filer's Files lately?
I did it's not really totally non-orb. A guy in Gosport, England was fishing on the English Channel, and a large object flew over him, broke into pieces. He saw a white orb flying high in the sky, and then he felt a pressure come over him, and he felt like he was in some sort of field. Afterwards, he started having dreams about abduction experiences, and bizarrely enough, 6 months after the encounter, when he was doused with this yellow light, he died of a virulent form of cancer. But he got me his story before he died, and George Filer posted it on Filer's Files. But there's definitely a correlation between what happened to the guy, and he just got all of these cancers 6 months later and died.
Oh my gosh, I remember you talking to me about that a few months ago, and that what a heartbreaking thing, and how lucky you were to have that experience.
What was scary about it was where he was fishing. It turns out that he was fishing next to Fort Moncton. Fort Moncton is the MI6 training facility, all right? DARPA in the United States has a similar entity in England, just happened to be in the same town as him, up the road from him. And on the other side of Fort Moncton, he was in between these two locations, was the British Navy's Her Majesty's Naval Base, the largest naval base in Great Britain.
Oh, wow.
Frequently visited by UFOs. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, we'll talk about that. We're going to take a quick break. UFO Classified, find me on Facebook or UFOclassified.com. This is KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network. We will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, and this is UFO Classified, and tonight is a fabulous night of really strong, brilliant women. After my show, you've got Joanna Roth coming up with Universal Child, and then my fabulous producer, Tina Marie, is on restricted airspace and then hyperspace with Solaris Blue Raven. So it is ladies' night times 10. Stick around, grab a margarita, and get in your pajamas. Listen to a good night of radio here on KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network. I am here with somebody that I hold in very high regard, and we have a passion for the same thing. Robert Spearing is my guest tonight, and we're talking about the orange orb phenomena, or we could call it Foo Fighters or Foxfire, Hob Lanterns, Will-O-Wisps. There are all sorts of names that have been used, and are they the same thing? I am beginning to think that they most certainly are. They were occurring in specific locations decade after decade. And we're back with Bob. So, my gosh, there's just so much that we could talk about on this specific subject.
It's very interesting. There's all sorts of theories about what these objects are. And at some point, all of these theories fall short in a certain way. Will-o'-the-wisps, people believe, are phosphine gas, which spontaneously ignites over swamps. The problem with that is that there is no catalyst in nature to make them spontaneously combust. If you put a match to it, the gas will combust. But there's nothing in nature in a swamp that would make a will-o'-the-wisp exist and ignite. So the theory that they're phosphine gas is lacking. The other thing about will-o'-the-wisps is that when people try to approach them, they back away. When people stand still, will-o'-the-wisps will float around them as if analyzing them. Same thing with ball lightning. Ball lightning seems to be a very inquisitive phenomenon. It follows people around. It circles their heads. This is not something that an inert object in nature would normally do. They seem to possess some sort of intelligence. Plasmas. Plasmas, again, fall short. When people say these things are made out of high-temperature plasmas, plasmas need microwave fields to exist in, or some sort of electromagnetic field which needs to contain them. Otherwise, a plasma, being a ionized gas, will try to go back to its original state almost instantaneously. Yet we see orbs for 30, 40 minutes at a time. We see Earth lights for 30, 40 minutes at a time. There is nothing in nature that can make an Earth light last 40 minutes. If there's some sort of electrical phenomenon, the Earth is a great dissipator of electricity. They should immediately dissolve and not float around for an hour. So a lot of the theories that people have about ball lightning, Earth lights, and such are lacking still. And these things definitely possess some sort of intelligence, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. And I think that, honestly, I would say that 99.9% of the people that have really researched this agree wholeheartedly that they are very intelligent or intelligently controlled. There's something there that would just, but again, I look at Marcia Adams, and she has Earthlights, International Earthlight Alliance, and she's done a lot of great work, but I don't know if her work necessarily comes to the conclusion or draws the conclusion that this is something intelligent.
Well, can I break in with the violent behavior thing that I've been working on? For the most part, MUFON and NUFORC get thousands and thousands of reports of nocturnal lights. And for the most part, they're benign things that people are seeing in the sky. Sometimes people feel that they're checking them out, that they're being scanned or whatever, but they're for the most part benign. But I've done a lot of research over the years about orb behavior through history, and there is definitely a violent tendency in some of the cases that I've looked into. And if there's a violent tendency, that shows that there must be intelligence. Back in Thutmose III's reign as Pharaoh of Egypt, I mentioned before about the balls of light in the sky that came one day. There's another incident that happened during the reign of Thutmose III. They found a stone. It's called a stela. It's called the Gebel Barkal Stela, and it contains a story carved into it in stone. In 1500 BC or thereabouts, Thutmose was having a civil war with the south part of Egypt, and the two armies went to meet on the battlefield. And this stela, this stone, tells the story that a white star came down from the sky and annihilated the opposing army. So you could say two things here. One, the ancient Egyptians knew very well what meteorites were. They made jewelry from them. So you would think that they would have called it a meteorite, or their term for it, rather than a star coming down from the sky. Second of all, it only annihilated one army. It was very specific in its behavior. So you'd have to say it wasn't a meteorite. Otherwise, it would have destroyed everybody on the battlefield. So we have targeted behavior. In Nuremberg in 1561, the famous incident, April 14th, you're having an aerial battle in the sky. Some people have tried to say that this was some sort of atmospheric phenomenon. All right. However, if you look at the Hans Glaser woodcut, you'll see that one of the orbs has crashed and is on fire in a field in the lower right-hand corner of the woodcut that he made. So you'd have to say this can't possibly be an atmospheric phenomenon. In Wales in 1694, and Wales is a hotbed to this day of orb sightings. In 1694, you have the orbs coming out of the sea, setting fire to barns. And haystacks. In the 1300s, Robert Bruce in Scotland went to war based on orange orbs in the sky that he believed were a sign from heaven that sent him into war, which he eventually defeated England. In 1959, you have the Dilatov Pass incident, which is an incident that has fascinated me for years. A skiing expedition in Russia camped for the night. They were never heard from again. People went to investigate and found that their tents had been ripped open from the inside as if they were trying to escape fast. They were found in their underwear. They were found with their skulls crushed. They were found with their tongues ripped out.
Yes, they were cored out. Their eyes were gone.
Yes.
I mean, that's an incredibly disturbing case that has fascinated me as well.
And villagers in the nearest village nearby told investigators that that entire week, where in the area where the skiing camp was set up, orange orbs had been seen that whole week. But probably the most intense case was when it was investigated by Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek that took place in Salidare, Ethiopia in 1970. A daytime orb, red orb, came through a village and destroyed houses, ripped up the road with its heat, turned around, made a U-turn, came back through the village, injured a number of people, and killed a small girl. All right? Jacques Vallée said it was a close encounter of the fourth kind. Hynek considered it a close encounter of the second kind. I tend to agree with Vallée that it was of the fourth kind because of the violent nature of this orb. But it just goes to show you that these things have intelligence and intent.
Yes. And that is exactly right. And I remember hearing Ted Phillips, we know he's done a great deal of work with the Marley Woods and this very type of phenomena. And he was lecturing, I think it was at MUFON LA, and talking about that incident that you were just talking about that Vallée investigated. And yes, they do. I mean, it's almost, it's fascinating. I think a majority, probably 98% of them are behaving in a non-aggressive manner, but then you get some of these cases where you wonder, and then you hear about the cattle mutilations, and
Right.
you hear about the lights, the orbs that are seen with regard to cattle mutilations.
Right,
And
right.
boy, how do we distinguish?
Right. Yeah. There's a number of behaviors, what we're doing with Project Orange at MUFON is we're trying to quantize these behaviors and these characteristics to see if there's commonalities in them. And just for an example, we did 28 criteria. Total so far, we did 489 cases. And these were the findings. Extremely rapid acceleration and deceleration, where you have these objects making right angle turns, instantaneously changing directions from forward to backwards, accounts for about 8.4% of the cases. Less than 1%, only 0.002%, orbs are accompanied by sonic booms. Now, this is important because it supports the theory that orbs are not ball lightning. Less than 1% of the cases, you have sounds associated with orbs. In the majority of ball lightning cases, the ball of lightning will explode at the end with a thunderous clap of thunder. So you also have ball lightning can appear in people's houses, whereas orbs do not. Blinking in and out accounted for 31% of cases. The problem with blinking out as a behavior of orbs is that it's also a behavior of Chinese lanterns. So when people have tracked these things on video, if we see the orb blink out and then show up at a point higher, again, when it blinks in, we know it's not a lantern because it's still gaining altitude. A lantern is losing altitude because it's losing its fuel cell. Two interesting things that we found was that orbs don't like close encounters. Only 7.5% of orb sightings were Category 1, 2, or 3 close encounters. There are no 4 or 5 encounters, and there are very few entity encounters. Terry Ray lists 2 of them, and I found 2 of them in the NICAP files from the 1950s. Otherwise, they seem to avoid too close contact with human beings. Another thing is that they avoid Washington, D.C., where there are 0 sightings as far back as the MUFON database goes, and they avoid Disney World. Okay?
I don't blame them on that one.
Yeah. But as far as fireworks go, and this is interesting, 67% of the cases that we did, basically on the 4th of July, were associated with fireworks. Okay? We believe that orbs are attracted to fireworks. Terry Ray believes it's because large groups of people on the ground will see the orb and that the orb wants to be seen. My personal feeling is that there's something in the signature, the chemical or light signature of the fireworks that attracts orbs. Fireworks contain a high level of phosphorus, and we found that orbs are attracted to bodies of water high in phosphorus, and fireworks contain strontium-90, which is a radioactive element. If these things are probes of some sort, because they seem to have accelerated with the Foo Fighters and then with the atomic tests in the 1940s and 50s, we've had an increase ever since in orb sightings. Maybe they're monitoring any type of radioactivity around the world, and that's what attracts them to it. As far as bodies of water go, Terry Ray believes that these things come from underwater bases, some in the Atlantic Ocean, maybe one in Lake Erie, and we found that 38% of the cases are near the Great Lakes and 23% are near the oceans. Pursued by military aircraft, we had 9 cases out of 500 where there was a helicopter or a military jet chasing the object. And also the most common apparent size of orbs is basketball sized orbs. We found that 15% were star-like in appearance. 18% people said looked like aspirins in size. 8% said pennies. 5% said golf balls, but 26% said basketball size, which says that these objects are much larger than Chinese lanterns, because something the size of a basketball at close range would easily be identified as a Chinese lantern. But Chinese lanterns at only 500 feet away are as small as stars. So this says that these objects are probably much larger than Chinese lanterns. And finally, we did telepathy. 1% of cases concern telepathy, and there's that's not much. We thought it would be much higher, but there's one really good case, and if I got time, I'd like to tell you that one.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
There was this guy. He died, unfortunately, about 3 years ago. His name was Ramon Watkins. He died in August of 2014. He called himself Prophet Yahweh. And what he did was he posted a number of videos on YouTube saying that through religious incantations to God, he could summon orbs. All right. And he posted videos of him in a park doing his thing, chanting to God, and then cutaways to orbs in the sky. And the problem with that was that he never put timestamps on the videos, and no one knew whether he was chanting and then 6 days later or 2 minutes later he was filming the orb. So Channel 13 in Las Vegas, KTNV, sent a reporter and a camera crew. The guy's name was Mike Dell'Estrito. In 2009, they made an offer to him. They said, "We'll pick the date, we'll pick the time, we'll pick the place, and we want you to summon an orb." And Prophet Yahweh said, "Okay." And they showed up, and they had the camera rolling, and in 3 minutes, this guy, after chanting, "Oh, Prophet Yahweh, I am here, oh God," an orb showed up. Scared the TV reporter because he thought the orb was coming at him. This is all on the news story. The story was so popular that they decided to run a second story, and then it got squashed because the corporate head said that it wasn't newsworthy. The thing is that this is a legitimate case of telepathy as far as I'm concerned. You'll never get a better documented case as a television news crew filming an orb appearing at the beck and command of somebody else. So I think it's a very significant sighting.
I do too, and I think that there are people that can honestly summon in these objects. I think Robert Bingham.
Bingham, right?
Yes, is one of those as well. And while some of the stuff might be a little questionable, I think that there is there is a connection. And you look at some of the CE5 contact groups. I mean, there's you make
Who's that? Greer, Dr. Greer.
Well, it's Greer, but then it went back to the Rama group. Way back, I mean, in the 70s and things. And so there have been contact groups that were established well before Greer came into the picture. And, like Greer or not, I think unfortunately because of his, the way he is perceived, people don't understand that there is much more to the contact movement. And it's important because there is a conscious connection. There are many, many people who have had lots of interaction with this just by meditating, calming their mind. They definitely feel that they can vector and craft. And I think that that's something that we need to look at very seriously.
I'll tell you this, the earliest encounter that I have with orbs was in 1905, again in Wales, in a place called Ergen. There was a female preacher by the name of Mary Jones, and she was involved in a religious revival in Wales. And when she would preach in this small church in Ergen, beginning in the winter of 1904 and carrying over till April of 1905, orbs would appear over the church. Not only would they appear over the church when she spoke, when she preached, but when she would leave in her horse-drawn carriage, the orbs would follow her down the road. If she made a right turn in a road, the orbs would make a right turn and follow her. If she was going too slow, the orbs would go ahead of the carriage and wait for her. So this is the second example that we have of somebody doing religious incantations, basically, and attracting orbs to a certain degree. And this is from 1905. So it was not a Chinese lantern and it was not a drone.
Isn't that interesting? And oh my gosh, there's so many aspects to this that where do you begin, Because I definitely feel that we need to look into the conscious connection. And again, I look at some of the investigators that we have out there now who are very prolific on Facebook and some of the social media, and they're making their comments about the CE5 groups and how it's all a bunch of nonsense and yada, 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 but yet none of them have ever tried to do that.
Right.
So I think we need to do that. And I think sometimes indigenous peoples had the Native Americans. I mean, I think they had a very strong respect for what these things were. And they knew how to perhaps interact or leave them alone. And, you look at the Aborigines, you look at all of these different people who understood that this was something that was happening, and that's the way it was.
Right. Well, in Australia, the Mennonites, the stories go back to the Aborigines centuries ago, long before cars could account for this type of stuff. And the Aborigines had a communion of sorts with nature. So it's not unbelievable that there was Aboriginal interaction with these lights.
Yeah, it's all just so fascinating. And I mean, my gosh, I've got so many questions for you. We're going to have to definitely talk again this week and get some stuff going. But do you feel, we've got a question again from the chat room, that any of these reports, they're portals where locations of these orange orbs appear to come and go through?
Well, there's a couple. One of the cluster areas that we discovered in Terry Ray would say yes, there are definitely portals. All right. If there are portals, I would say that one of them would be Lake Erie. And Lake Ontario has a lot of orb sightings also. And Long Island, New York. Long Island, New York has some very clandestine national laboratories, and a lot of these cases that we pegged out seem to take place near national laboratories and advanced weapons facilities such as Earl Naval Base. Where a lot of secret projects go on. And are these things being generated at these bases, or are they somehow attracted to these bases? Does the United States government have some sort of portal? I don't think it's so far-fetched. They're definitely coming from somewhere, and I don't think that basically there's a lot of military bases that attract orbs.
Absolutely, and we have one right here in Utah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that because I think this is important. We're going to take a quick break. This is our last break. This is Erica Lukes here with Bob Spearing. You can find him on World UFO Watch. We will be right back, and the best is yet to come, so stick around.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Three guys, no ties.
Of course, I'm being grossly generalistic, Mrs. Clinton, but I have some names for you. Watergate conspirator, constitutional rights violator, evidence disapparator, laughing child rape defender, whitewater manipulator, Madison Guarantee defrauder, Travelgate liar, FBI background file stealer, crime scene violator.
Three guys, no ties. Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific. Right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Bowl for Life is a non-profit organization founded in 2013 by Chuck Gardner with one simple goal: to grow the sport of bowling worldwide. Over the years, Bowl for Life has given out thousands of dollars in scholarships to youth bowlers around the world. Our focus is to nurture integrity, honesty, professionalism, as well as respect into bowlers both young and old. You can help us by going to bowlforlife.com. Even the smallest donation goes a long way to breaking down the barriers and helping us assist people of all ages to improve their skills as well as knowledge of the game. Bowl for Life is happy to be partnered with other great organizations like the Youth Education Services Fund, as well as the United States Bowling Congress, with many spectacular integrated events planned in the near future. To learn more, go to bowlforlife.com. That's bowlforlife.com.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie. featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For Hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, everyone. This is KCOR Digital Broadcasting Network, and it's Ladies' Night, so stick around. We've got some great shows coming up, and I'm really excited to tell you that my show is not only here on KCOR, which is the motherland, but I'm now going to be played on Z-Talk Radio on Saturday afternoons, so you can catch my show on Z-Talk Radio. If you've missed it or want to hear any of the past episodes, it's great. I'm really excited. That's just going to grow the audience. It's a wonderful thing. I am here tonight with my friend and colleague, somebody that I respect a tremendous amount and I'm so proud of, because he is he's getting all of this great information out about the orange orb phenomena, which is real. It has happened for, probably as long as we have recorded history. It's important, and as researchers and investigators, as witnesses, we need to step into this without bias and look at the fact that we are seeing these objects over densely populated areas, over nuclear installations, and they are interacting with us. So, Bob, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, go.
No, it's just such a pleasure to be here with you, and I can't believe that we've already burned through.
It's going fast.
My gosh. And I want to talk a little bit about the Foo Fighters, because we were, we've got these different ways to view things as time goes on. We've got different names for things, but Foo Fighters were incredibly interesting. And I've just, through my friend Paul Dean and Barry Greenwood, I've collected all of these Foo Fighter reports. Some of these reports haven't been seen by other people, and they're just, it's flabbergasting. There's absolutely no way that we could say that the military didn't understand that there was something phenomenal taking place.
Right. I know that the Germans and the Japanese, they were over the Pacific as well as the Atlantic and over Europe. The Germans and Japanese thought they were our secret weapons. We thought that they were their secret weapons. We thought that they were some sort of electromagnetic bomb that was going to try to shut off the airplane engines. But none of that was actually what was going on. After the war, we found out that the Germans and the Japanese thought they were ours, and we thought they were the the Germans and the Japanese, so nobody knows who they are. But there were two different angles that I thought were interesting that I found out about Foo Fighters. One was that they used to like to dance from wing to wing of the airplanes, and if they were some sort of electrical phenomenon, which is what people have tried to write them off as, why did it cease in 1946? Why don't airplanes today have orange balls dancing from wing to wing? It was an isolated experience to World War II. They were trailing our airplanes. The other thing is that prior to World War II, there weren't that many airplanes in the sky. All right. If these things are living entities, they may have been attracted to airplanes, which really came into full bloom during World War II. They may have been attracted to the airplanes purely out of curiosity, and we may have been in their environment. And that as they realized we were hostile, they began avoiding us, which is why you don't have the Foo Fighter phenomenon continuing to the present day. I think it's very interesting that they could be living creatures attracted to the new thing called an airplane in the 1930s and 40s, and then realized that they were too dangerous to be around.
You know, and I that's interesting, and I do wonder if they are some sort of living creature that's keeping track of what's going on,
Right.
keeping track of what we're doing to the planet. I mean, there are all sorts of ways we could go down with this, but I'm actually sitting here looking at a secret paper that I have received. It was from the 16th of January, 1945, and the subject was night phenomenon, and it was to the commanding general from the 1st Tactical Air Force, the U.S. Army, and it states here that the following is quoted from a training and tactical information supplied by the 415th Flight Night Fighters Squadron for the last month of December. And it states, we've encountered a phenomena which we cannot explain. Crews have been followed by lights that blink on and off, changing colors, etc. The lights come very close and fly formation with our planes. They are agitating and keep crews on edge when they encounter them, mainly because they cannot explain them. It is requested further information be furnished on this subject, such as similar experiences of other night units.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of these reports and exchanges, and it's mind-blowing. And to me, when I look at all of these reports, and then I look at some of the work that NARCAP has done with regard to some of the sightings that commercial airline pilots are having with these types of objects, I mean, it's very, very curious.
Well, one of the interesting things is one of the famous photographs of a thunderbolt, two thunderbolts. You see the tail end of one, and you see the front end of the one following it. In between is a Foo Fighter, and based on the size of the Thunderbolt airplane, which was 35 feet in length, we were able to figure out that the Foo Fighter that was trailing between the two planes was approximately 4 feet in diameter.
You know, and don't you think? I mean, my feeling is these are all the same things.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly there's nothing new, there's nothing different, and so how do we as researchers or investigators begin to pull things together so we can make correlations?
Well, I think that when MUFON completes Project Orange and they publish the results, I think that at that point maybe there needs to be some cooperation between MUFON, NARCAP, and other researchers to try to put this in perspective from a larger sized project, where we take every conceivable angle, whether people think that they're living things, whether people think that they're technological things, whether people think they're from some other place, some other time, some other space, or whether some of them are natural phenomena. We need to all start to correlate our information at some point.
We do. I mean, absolutely. I agree. And that's kind of what I've been, well, that is what I've been trying to do since I started investigating or researching, You know, for me, it is, we have to work together. And that's been one of my kind of problems, I think, with MUFON is they're very isolated and they don't necessarily reach out to other researchers or organizations and share data. And so I hope that that can be done. I mean, I know that you and I could do that. Absolutely.
Right. I know a lot of times MUFON will put out a white paper and it'll be tucked away somewhere in their website where nobody ever sees it. I think that's a shame. Because I think there's a lot of valuable white papers in MUFON that I think that they should publicize more.
Yeah, and I remember when I was working for the communications department at MUFON, I mean, that was always the thing. It's like, okay, we need to get all of this work, where are the white papers? How can we get this out to the public?
Right,
And
yeah.
disseminate this information? And it was just kind of one of those things that never seemed to happen, but hopefully it will.
Yeah, there's a lot of good papers that aren't seeing a light of day. They need to figure out a way to publicize them.
I hope they do, because, you know, I think the world of Robert Powell, who is the...
Oh, I met him at the convention. He's a really great guy.
Isn't
really
he
great
wonderful?
guy.
I mean, he's done this for so long, and he is, I will say that he has been one of the kindest, most helpful people to me as I've gone through all of my radar cases and different things. He's always calls me back, always has conversations with me, and he's a really good, genuine human being.
Really smart guy, really friendly to me, and he was so smooth on stage. He was great to watch. He's very entertaining.
And did he talked about the Utah case? I just have to.
Yes, he did. I was there because I had one of the top 5 cases too. I had the
That's awesome.
the policeman in England in 1996 who had the black triangle fly over him and emit a blue beam of light. 3 months earlier, the same triangle apparently emitted a blue beam of light over a girl in a field, also in Yorkshire, England, and she was abducted. She said that the blue beam of light pulled her up into the triangle, and that she was put on a table, and that she was examined by a tall creature and 2 smaller creatures, and that afterwards she found herself back in the field, and she had frequent nosebleeds and headaches for months afterwards. What was unique was that the same neon blue beam of light surrounded her and the police officer 30 miles away, 3 months apart in time, and that probably the police officer was rejected for an abduction because he would have been more problems than he was worth. So I was up there giving that presentation, and Robert gave several others because the field investigators weren't available, but he was very entertaining.
Oh, I bet he was so great. And we were, I think, Jeff Cox, my assistant state director, and at the time with MUFON, and then Bill Puckett. I mean, we were sad that we couldn't be there, but we knew that Robert Powell would be representing, and I'm glad that he was, because that was that was a cool thing for all of us, apparently, that we were on the MUFON top 10 cases of the year. That's great.
Yeah, he went into the whole thing. He talked about you. He talked about the ham radio operator. He went into the whole case.
He is a great guy, and I mean, it's people like, you know, Robert Powell, who's been doing this for such a long time, and who works with NICAP and just does these amazing things, and then Bill Puckett, and I mean, I can think of people that I'm really now finding out the gravity of their work, mm-hmm. and how much they've sacrificed and the contributions that they've made, and I think a lot of people don't understand that at all, and I really hope that we can change that.
Well, that's why we need scientists like them, you know, because, you know, my investigative background is basically in statistics. I investigated railroad accidents, but that was enough for me to consider being a field investigator. And my statistical analyses is what's carried me through. That's my strength. But I'm not a scientist, and I think, you know, MUFON and other organizations like NARCAP and stuff who have people with the science background, that's what we need to legitimize our study to a certain extent.
You know, we do, and that it brings up a really, really good point. I mean, I think that we need to change the sentiment with the mainstream scientific community, and we also need to engage people. I mean, just citizens like you and I that are out there that have maybe I don't have a scientific mind. Clearly,
Right.
I'm an artist, and I tend to look at things and pick things up in a much different way than a scientist would, and that sometimes that means that I'm looking at a broader picture, whereas a scientist is looking at a very specific thing, and I think that both sides can work together beautifully to try to solve this enigma.
Right. I totally agree. Totally agree.
And it's fun too. I mean, I don't know if I'm sure you've kind of reached out to other people around the world that are videotaping and collecting data. I mean, just some of these citizen scientists, we'll call them, who have seen extraordinary things, and they're out there, they're mobilizing, they're learning. I think of Charles Lemeroux, who's up in Canada, who just released a film that a couple of us were in, Jen Harzan, Richard Dolan, myself for a brief moment, and Ted Rowe from NARCAP. And it's a really cool thing to see people getting active and motivated and wanting to learn more. It's an exciting time.
It is. And I mean, a lot of the media that MUFON gets is really unusable, but we do get some great video from time to time, and we get some great cases. One of the things that I forgot to mention earlier was that these orbs are seen a lot of times in conjunction with other objects. If you go back to Nuremberg again, these blood red orbs that were battling in the sky were seen in conjunction with cylinders and crosses in the sky. What's interesting about that is that the cylinders were seen at a 45-degree angle. In the 1950s, there were 2 orb cases in France that were seen in conjunction with cylinders, and these cylinders were both at a 45-degree angle. Raymond Fowler in the 1960s wrote about an encounter in New England where a woman went out late at night on a lake and saw a cylinder at a 45-degree angle dispensing orbs which would float around and then come back to the cylinder. So there was definitely a correlation between cylinders and orbs, and what was interesting was that the cylinders were always at a 45-degree angle, so there had to be something to that we don't understand. What's happened more recently, in the MUFON CMS database is that we've had a case from England where black triangles have been seen in conjunction with orange orbs. 2 orange orbs were trailing a black triangle, switching positions back and forth as they went. In South Africa, we had a case of a disc actually launching an orange orb right over a guy's head. So we've seen that there are other objects throughout history that operate in conjunction with orbs, which I think is another fascinating aspect of the phenomenon.
Wow, isn't that interesting? And I think of a case that we had here a few years ago over, it was over Alpine, Utah, and it was very interesting because many witnesses, I mean, it was on the TV, you can find it on YouTube now, but witnesses were out there and they saw these spherical objects and they were ejecting something.
Yes.
And it was very curious because it was the same night that Dugway Proving Ground was shut down because a vial of neurotoxin went missing.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's an interesting coincidence.
Uh-huh. It is, and so there are all these little correlations. And I talked to James Clarkson last week because he was on the show for a bit, and he was talking about a case up in Washington where these spherical objects were videotaped, and they were also kind of ejecting something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Jim Clarkson. I just spoke to him last week on the phone about a historic case that the SAT team is doing at MUFON.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's really good guy.
He is great. And I want to say we've just got a few minutes left, but I want to say you heard Erling Strand speak at the MUFON Symposium about Hesstallen. So tell us a little teeny bit about what he had to say about this light phenomenon.
I caught his ear for about 5 minutes after he was done talking, and he had gone into spectrographic analyses that he was talking about all the different tools they use, but he didn't specifically say anything about what the results were. So when I got him after his speech, I said, what were the results of the spectrographic analysis? And he said, that's very interesting that nothing showed up. We could not tell what the light was composed of. I thought that was very fascinating. And the other thing that came out was that 95% of the objects that they've observed, the lights, were some sort of thermal plasma, but 5% of the objects were solid, which means they could not be some sort of atmospheric phenomenon. And the third thing that he mentioned was that they grow and they shrink in size based on the amount of energy they give off, and also that they appear to be not one object, but many objects huddled together, which I thought was fascinating too. That was what his analysis was.
Well, there are a lot of, if you go to hessdalen.org, you can see all of the technical papers that they've done in 30 years, of research. And they've had a multitude of different universities, scientists out there actively engaging and trying to understand what's taking place. And to me, that is the big granddaddy of all things. And if I want to go out there, maybe you can join me sometime. Let's go over to Norway.
Right. I've been to Norway. Norway's a great place. Norway's a beautiful country. But he has students all of the time on top of a mountain. They operate like all winter long, this observatory on the top of the mountain with photographic equipment, spectrographic equipment, radiation equipment. It's probably the most documented of all of the nocturnal light phenomena around.
It is, and I love the fact that he's just the kindest human being, and he's talked about I adore him, and I adore the work, and if you are honestly very serious about this going to a site and looking at the quality research that they have done, it's really important, and you cannot look at that and say that there's not something taking place.
Right.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you got to meet him. That is awesome. And so what are you doing next? Are you going to be speaking anywhere?
No, I'm done for a while. I'm done till at least next year. Right now, the SAT Special Assignment Team at MUFON has given me a case that I'm not allowed to go into too much detail about it, but it's a historic case from 1957, and it's about unknown objects over a military base. And a witness came forward, 84-year-old, who claimed that he was in the Air Force, and that he actually witnessed this event. We did some researching on it, and we actually found newspaper articles that it actually did occur. So right now I'm doing a statistical analysis because there was a wave of UFO sightings in 1957, very famous flap, and it seems that this nuclear plant was part of that flap, and that there may have been something larger going on.
Oh, that is what a great case. That is really cool. Will MUFON be publishing that as you
I don't know. I don't know at this case. It's too early to tell where they're going to take it. Right now they're vetting the witness to make sure he was really there. And I'm just doing a statistical analysis to see if there's any patterns, which is what I'm good at.
Oh, you are good at that. Oh my gosh. And I definitely feel that you and I are going to work together again, because
I believe so.
Oh, absolutely. We just have way too much passion for this, and I'm impressed with how much you have learned and how many wonderful things you've accomplished. I can't believe it. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Oh, absolutely. I hope that you can make it out to UFO Congress. Mm-hmm. And we can meet in person and then talk about all of this. And I will be, presenting on the Orange Orb phenomena, which is exciting. And that I will always give props to you and all of your work.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. This is what we have to do, because this is too important, and there are so many wonderful people that I've contributed to this, and I just want to tell all of my listeners, if you want to really dig into this, there are some amazing books, and one was recommended to me by Nick Redfern by Rob Riggs called Into the Big Thicket on the Trail of the Wild Man. Amazing book that talks a lot about these orb sightings with relation to Bigfoot and other types of phenomena, which you see at Skinwalker Ranch, as we all know. And then you've got the Utah UFO display. Dr. Frank Salisbury talks about the orange orb phenomenon, Night Orbs by James Winnell, the Earth Light, Examining the Earth Light Theory by Greg Long. All of these are wonderful books, and I will give you links on my UFO Classified Facebook page. But please go and send any of your orb sightings to my friend Bob Spearing and look at his wonderful website and I mean, World UFO Watch. You have great stuff. I love it.
Yeah, I try to post a lot of orb-oriented material, but I'm also intrigued by historical cases, especially from South America, so I like to put stuff up about them too.
Oh, I love that. It's so awesome. So make sure you guys check it out. Thanks again, everybody, for listening, and make sure you join me next week because I will be interviewing Richard Smith. We'll talk about his book, The Moor, the Mason, and the Alien, A Call to Action. Make sure you find me on Facebook. Go to my website, UFOclassified.com. Have a wonderful weekend, and stick around for Joanna L. Ross on Universal Child. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.